Broadcasting live from the Wellness Wonderland, you're listening to the Wellness Wonderland Radio. I'm Katie, and each week I chat with the most inspirational people on the planet on how to stay inspired in all areas of life. As you listen, feel free to tweet at me at Katie Dalebout or use the hashtag Wellness Wonderland. I'd love to hear your aha moments. So grab your headphones and listen on the go, or cuddle up with a notebook as we dive in deep with authentic conversations right here in Wonderland. Welcome back, everyone. I am so thrilled for today's episode. We have Nicole Jardim in Wonderland today, and I've been following Nicole in her amazing work for a while now, and I'm just so excited to get to know her with you guys today and learn from her. She's really cool. So if you aren't familiar with her work, she's the founder of the Healthy Elements and Fix Your Period program, and she teaches women how to get their hormones on track, and so they don't have to ruin their lives and they don't have to run the show. And it's just a really cool, awesome way to help people take back control of their health and their bodies. So I can't wait to learn more from her. Thank you so much for stopping by, Nicole.
Thank you. What a great intro. I appreciate it. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Yay. Okay, well, I have so much to get to, so let's dive in. And why don't we start with your story, and maybe you can just kind of zoom the lens back for us and tell us your journey and story and what kind of led you down this path.
Absolutely. I would love to. It started similarly to yours. I actually I'd studied TV production and journalism in college. Yeah, I know, right? It's totally the same thing. I know, and I was so sure that that was what I wanted to do in my 18-year-old head, and so I did that for a long time. I graduated from college, and went right into sort of freelancing in TV production and commercials and things like that. And prior to that, during my teenage years, I'd had a lot of issues with my period. I had a lot of menstrual problems, a lot of physical pain, emotional stuff happening. All these different things, really heavy periods, all kinds of stuff were you name it, and I had it happening. And so it started to get a little bit better because I'd been put on the pill, which unfortunately was just masking my issues. But it did, obviously the physical symptoms, all those things started to get a little better. And so by the time I graduated from college, I was like, okay, got to come off the pill, because it had started a sort of cascade of all these other issues. So I sort of went from one hormonal imbalance to the next. And so when I was graduating, I thought, okay, I'm getting off the pill, I'm graduating from college, I'm doing all these things, like this is good. And so it took me a little while to get back on track in terms of getting my period back and it normalizing, but it did for the most part, because I was starting to get into holistic healing and eating better and things like that. But then everything started to get off track over time because I was working in this crazy business, and I knew after a couple of years that I needed to figure out a way to sort of make a living in health and wellness, because I knew it just wasn't sustainable being in the film and TV world. So that's really how it all started. I mean, it started as, with issues as a teenager, and then at the time I was so dead set on what I wanted to do back then that the thought of health and wellness never really occurred to me.
Right.
But by my mid-20s, I just knew that I had to make a change, and so that's how I got the ball rolling.
I love that. And I think this is really interesting. And I was just talking about this recently with a friend, that anybody who is drawn to this world of health and wellness, or, this kind of realm, it's really easy for us to look at you or look at these people kind of in this world talking about this stuff and say, wow, they've got it all together and her period must be great, or, or whatever. And I think it's really cool to hear people's story, because it's like anybody who's drawn to this work of healing was at one point or another healing themselves through something.
For
And
sure.
I think that that's really great for people to hear the story as the relatable element, and that's really, really cool. So I guess, okay, so just to clarify, take me back in your story. So you said that
Mm-hmm.
like you were struggling with your period, and then since you were already into natural healing and kind of wellness, how did that originally come up? How did you get into that natural healing and wellness? Was it something you
Well,
researched on your own?
it was, yeah, it started that way. I mean, like I said, I was in college at the time, and I was, I had a lot of, it's crazy because like I said, all the physical symptoms that I was experiencing as a teenager before going on the pill had pretty much resolved themselves because I went on the pill. And unfortunately, this is a whole other conversation, but the pill just didn't work well for me. At the time, I thought it was, but what it was doing was I was just not getting enough of the hormones I needed to function properly. And so I ended up with all kinds of issues, like chronic yeast infections and urinary tract infections, which can come about from the pill, and then just general deficiencies. And I didn't feel good. I had like constant joint pain and things like that. And that's usually a sign of something like low estrogen, again, brought about for some women who are on the pill, on especially low dose pills. And so for me at, such a young age, I didn't feel well. I was constantly sick. I had this pain. I had all these things, and my period was so light. It was to the point where it was practically disappearing. Again, you think that's great, but until you realize the consequences of that.
Right.
Yeah. And so for me, I thought, okay, I got to do something. And I'd been to all the doctors. I did everything. I spent thousands of dollars on testing, and everybody had a different scenario or a different diagnosis, and
Yeah.
none of it was correct. So I figured, okay, time to
Took
take
things into
matters
your
into
own
my own hands.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. And so that's what I did. A friend of mine was seeing an acupuncturist. I think I was like 22 maybe at this point. And she said, you should really go see him. And I thought, okay, I'll try. And so I went to him, and I really never looked back. I saw him. And then over the next couple of years, I think I tried like every different modality I could find, all kinds of stuff. And it was through that, he talked to me about how to change my diet, how to do all these different things to help with my physical issues, the symptoms I was experiencing. And prior to that, I had no clue that food was that connected to our bodies. I mean, who would have told me?
Right. So you didn't grow
know,
up that way, and that way of
no,
thinking and eating.
I didn't. I mean, there was always home cooked meals and things like that, but it was very much meat and potatoes. So it wasn't one of those, yeah, it wasn't a household where we were eating kale
Right.
by any means. Yeah. So it was
And I
one of
think
those things.
that's another thing that people assume. I mean, people have said that to me. They're like, "Oh, I would assume you grew up, on a farm with, like swimming in kale." And like that just wasn't the case. And people think that you have to kind of it can be overwhelming. You have to be like almost born into this. But a lot of people like you and like me didn't grow up with that and really found it for ourselves.
Exactly. I think that's exactly it. And you kind of stumble into it, and then suddenly there's this whole bright world out there.
Right.
And that's what happened. And so it started that way. And then I did like a little like a holistic nutrition course at this like holistic living school. I was living in Orlando in Florida at the time, and the girl who was teaching it was currently in IIN, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, for anyone who doesn't know. And that was how I heard about it. And then I made it my mission to move to New York and go to this school and just figure this out somehow.
Amazing.
Yeah. So that's how it all happened.
That's so cool. Well, my next question, I was going to ask you why you decided to specialize in women's health, and after you went to IIN, and we're kind of working up to that, so it's a perfect segue. But
Perfect.
I'm assuming it definitely had to do a lot with your own body and what you teach what you know, right?
For sure. It did. Again, when I went to IIN, I was still trying to figure out the women's health part of it. And I wasn't sure what I was going to specialize in. But then I saw a couple of different people speak while I was at IIN, and I realized that this was really the road I wanted to go down. And I, because it was the one I was most passionate about, I just couldn't learn enough about it. It was crazy. And so that's how it all started. And so I apprenticed at Flow Living in New York.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and so that's how I really got my foot in the door when it comes to women's health, and my understanding of it was pretty much solidified then. So I thought, okay, now I've got this really great foundation. Now I've I've got to start to do this, and so that's how the business was really born. And since then I've continued my education in women's health because IIN provides a really great foundation, and my apprenticeship really helped to for me to understand, or help me to understand how hormonal health works, how food influences our hormones, all and stress as well. And so I needed to really hone in on that, and so that's what I've been doing over the last 3 years.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely want to give people a lot of great takeaways from this. So let's get into it a little bit. Let's talk healthy periods and why they're so important. And can you kind of just give like an overview of that and the dangers of being on the pill and why it's important to
Oh
know?
yeah, for sure. So I get this a lot. A lot of women say, "Oh, well, I'm on the pill and there's, nothing wrong with that, or I'm fine. Like I hardly get a period anymore. That's great." Things like that. But for so many of us, it's kind of short-sighted. We're not thinking about the long-term effects of how the pill, or how not having a period, or just period problems in general can affect us. And so for everyone who is listening, I feel the first thing to know is if you are having any kind of menstrual issues. So this is either a missing period, or really heavy flow, or 2 periods a month, because some women have that as well, or something like polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, any kind of pain with your period. It's a sign that something is definitely wrong, and that there's some kind of hormonal imbalance happening. And this underlying hormonal imbalance can absolutely be addressed using food, using supplementation, and just making simple lifestyle changes. So I just feel really strongly that that's what women need to know, because I don't think we do. We're not told about it. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I would say is that if you are on the pill, or you've been on the pill, and you're dealing with any kind of thyroid problem, like an underactive thyroid, or your period has not come back, or you're dealing with some other kind of issue that you feel might be related, it's more than likely that it is. And the problem with that is because the problem with the pill is that it takes over your hormonal function. So essentially what's happening is your hormones are no longer doing what they're supposed to do, because you're supplementing with this hormonal pill. And so that cuts off the communication between your brain and your ovaries. So when your brain doesn't need to talk to your ovaries anymore, it's just going to stop doing that. And when you come off the pill, especially if you've been on it for a long period of time, and it's more than likely you're coming off so that you can get pregnant, it might be very difficult for that communication to start happening again. And so that's my big warning for women. If you're considering being on the pill, or if you're on it or have been on it for a long time, I always recommend coming off of it as soon as you can, just because it really does have a detrimental effect on your entire cycle, because your cycle it's what dominates your whole life, literally. I mean, our menstrual cycles are very powerful, and I just don't think we're told that, and we don't realize it. And we can't get in touch with who we really are until we know what's going on in our bodies, and the pill shuts all of that off. So again, I just feel very strongly that women need to understand what it is that's happening within them in order to live their best lives. And until we do, we're going to be afraid of it. And so for me, I just, I want to be able to tell women that, it's all very easily to understand. It's just a matter of taking a little bit of time to get to know your body.
Absolutely. And taking that first step is really important. That was amazing. That was beautifully said. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
I can tell this is your passion.
Oh yeah, I know. I could talk about this all day.
I love it. Good. Well, I have lots of more questions about it, so it's perfect. I guess something I would love to know and hear about is, can we talk about the acne hormone connection for young adult women, and any advice you can offer there with getting back in balance?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think for a lot of women, acne seems to come about when they are on the pill, or there's obviously some sort of underlying hormonal imbalance happening. And the one big hormonal imbalance is high testosterone, or typically that's what the underlying cause of acne is, at least for adult women. And that can come about, that usually is a sign of something like polycystic ovarian syndrome. Not necessarily always, but that is one of the symptoms of it. And polycystic ovarian syndrome it's pretty pervasive in our society now. And the reason for that is because it stems from an underlying insulin resistance problem. So if we're eating food that doesn't, or we're not balancing our blood sugar, and we're eating foods that are like cake and muffins and all these other things that constantly spike and crash our blood sugar, what then happens is our insulin is also going to do that. So it's on this roller coaster. And when we have high levels of insulin in our bodies on a consistent basis, it's actually toxic to our ovaries. It actually changes the way our ovaries function. So instead of producing more estrogen, our ovaries produce more testosterone. And women don't need to have a lot of testosterone, obviously. And so when we do, we manifest these symptoms. A lot of them are things like acne, facial hair, oily skin, ovulation that does not happen every month. So it's sporadic ovulation or no ovulation at all. Sometimes women, their periods are also sporadic, or they disappear completely. And so that's, again, why, you might see acne, or at least that's one of the biggest reasons. And in addition to that, I would say too that your liver health is really incredibly important when it comes to addressing any kind of acne issue. If our livers are like our detoxing machines, if they're not functioning optimally, all of those toxins are kind of just going to overflow out of your liver and be circulating within your body, and they usually manifest as skin problems. So I would say those two are the really big ones in terms of causes of acne.
So taking those everything we've talked about kind of so far with hormones in connection with both acne and unhealthy periods, what would you say are 3 takeaway or action items that people could take to get started with balancing their hormones?
Oh, absolutely. I would say, one of the first things is, it always, at the end of the day, comes back to food. At least it does for me. And so one of the biggest things is to address any kind of blood sugar issue. And when I say that, what I mean is you want to make sure that when you're eating a meal, you're eating a balance of carbohydrates, and these are complex carbohydrates. So there's no white rice and white potatoes here. It's all, brown rice and quinoa or sweet potatoes, something along those lines. And you want to have that coupled with fat and protein. I found continually that women who have hormonal imbalances, usually they have blood sugar issues as well. And when they start to eat to balance their blood sugar, they start to heal their hormonal issue, and they start to feel tremendously better. So you want to balance protein, carbohydrates, and fat in each meal. And you also want to avoid sugar. I know that's difficult for a lot of people, but avoiding it, especially if, again, you have something like polycystic ovarian syndrome, it's so necessary. A lot of women find that a paleo-like diet is really, really helpful for something like PCOS. So that's something to look into as well. So the first thing would be to balance your blood sugar. I would say the next thing, it's food related as well, is to really focus on getting as many mineral-rich foods as possible. Minerals such as magnesium, it's one of the most deficient minerals in American society, and I would say for the most part in all modern societies. But yet magnesium plays a really big role in hormonal balance, especially with something like insulin issues and polycystic ovarian syndrome, and a number of other.
What are some foods with magnesium? I know cacao, right?
Yeah, cacao, definitely. That's a huge one. I think it's like the highest, has the highest content. And then just the leafy greens.
Nice.
I can't stress those enough because we just don't get enough of them. So all the leafy greens, kale, spinach, Swiss chard, mustard greens, all of those leafies that you can find pretty much have high levels of magnesium in them, as well
Mulgain.
as yeah, and a couple of the grains as well. So quinoa, I think, and brown rice as well. They have good amounts of magnesium. And then sea vegetables too. That's another one. Seaweed.
I love me some seaweed. Dulse is like my favorite food on the planet. Literally, everybody thinks it's so strange, but I adore it.
I know, me too.
Would you offer? Would you suggest people supplementing with magnesium, or is it something that you can pretty typically get from your diet?
I actually do, especially, and this is for women as well who experience a lot of pain. Magnesium is known as the smooth muscle mineral. So what it does is it helps relax muscles, and including your uterine muscles. So a lot of women who have physical pain during their periods, like cramps and that kind of thing, magnesium helps tremendously. So I love the natural calm magnesium. It just comes in a plastic bottle, basically. It's a white powder. Pretty straightforward. And you take a teaspoon of that in a couple of ounces of water a couple of times a day. And I have really great results with that.
Nice. I like that one too. We'll put the link of that below.
Perfect.
It gets all fizzy and it's like a nice bedtime drink.
Exactly.
Well, one question for me that came up with your advice, and I think you may have more, but I'm going to just jump in here and ask about this. So with blood sugar and finding balance in the meals, I thought that was really interesting and definitely will be really helpful for people. But what would you say, or do you ever run into this question with clients when people are concerned about food combining and maybe have weak digestion where they don't typically combine all of those things in one meal? Is it more important to do that, or how do you really kind of find the balance there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have found just in my own experience and working with clients that the first thing you want to be doing really and truly is healing your gut if you do have any gut issues. I find that time and again, and it was the same for me as well. If you have serious stomach problems, your food is not being digested properly. You're not absorbing the nutrients that you're consuming, and it's just all kind of going to waste. So it's no point eating good food if it is. And so that's where I think most people should start, especially if they have any kind of gut issues. And then, well, what was your question again? Sorry, I just went off on the gut tangent.
No. I think you just kind of
combining.
answered it. I was just asking, is it more important to eat that balanced meal with all of those things combined to have the blood sugar, or to properly combine to heal the gut if weak digestion is something that people are working with?
Yeah, I used to wonder about that as well. And like I was saying, in just my experience, I think that the combining of all of them really helps. I mean, again, it's different for different people. And that's why a big part of what I do and what I teach is that you have to listen to your body and what it's telling you and pay attention to signs. Otherwise, you're never really going to know what's working and what isn't working. So we could be doing all these things and have potential allergies to things and whatever else. And so until we start paying attention to the physical and emotional symptoms that we have or we experience after we eat, we're not going to know what works. And so for some women, they do great on a vegetarian diet where, they're eating mostly complex carbohydrates and fat and little protein. But for many other women, and this is what I've found, and many of my colleagues have found this too, that a lot of women just need that animal protein and the complex carbohydrates and then fat combined to feel really good after each meal.
Nice. This is super helpful for so many people giving this really broad perspective of this.
Yeah, I think again, you have to come into it with a really open mind and be ready to sort of dig deep and learn about what's going on inside of you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And like you said, it all goes back to listening to the body, looking under the hood, really really getting in touch with your body, because it's just like what you said at the beginning. It's about, you know, a doctor can't cure you, a book can't cure you. Really, the only thing that can help is when you take it into your own hands and make the decision to do things for yourself.
Absolutely. And that's the other thing too. We just, we've been programmed from the time we're young to go to the doctor, and the doctor is going to fix us and make us better. And I think that we still sort of think that way. And it comes to the point where, you know, you go to the doctor, and so many women go to the doctor now and they're not getting the answers they want. So they're becoming their own doctors, which isn't necessarily a good thing. But, you know, we've taken to Google, and unfortunately there are a lot of conflicting opinions and ideas online. And so it's hard to get the right information, but if you're not getting it from your doctor, you've got to just do what you got to do. And I think that, you know, we've just thought for so long that the doctors can help us and fix us, and we sort of take our bodies there like we take our cars to the mechanic, hoping for something.
And we're just all so different.
Yes, exactly. Everybody's so different. This one size fits all medicine just does not work anymore.
Yeah, it's really an old model. It really never should have been a model, and it's just kind of crazy that that people just hand over their power in that way. But
yes, I agree.
It's cool. Dr. Lissa Rankin, and I'm sure you're familiar with
love her.
Yeah, she's amazing. Yes. But I was just listening to a podcast with her, actually, and I believe she talks about this study in her book. But I think that's like where you come in, and where these amazing coaches in the world, but especially you with your work specifically on women's health, is so important. Because while it is something that what we're saying here is that women really need to take their health into their own hands and heal themselves and really listen to their bodies, and that's all true, and the only one that can really cure them is themselves, and I completely agree that that's true. But I think on some level, the story that Lissa Rankin told really drove home the fact for me that there is a place for these great coaches and people to really have this amazing effect on people. Because like you said, Google's dangerous, and reading books, I think, is really dangerous, because we all are so different. And she was saying it was this study that I think it was on like knee surgeries or something, and these people all had, there was like a placebo fake knee surgery, and then there was like the real knee surgery, and the people didn't know which one they were having. And all the people who had, long story short, all the people who had the fake surgery and the real surgery all healed the same. And part of it was, the thought that they were having the surgery, but also part of it was because they were still going there, and they were still getting the care from the doctors and the nurses, and people need that human interaction, that hand-holding, and just to believe that the nurses and the doctors, the nurses didn't know if they were giving the fake surgery or the real surgery, so they helped them just the same amount. And I think that that's really important, and to just have someone give their 100% attention to you and your body and really be there thinking about you is just really important. So commending you for all the great work you do.
Thank you so much. I love it. I love what you just talked about. It's really important for women to understand that, to have, like you said, take back their power and not, be informed. I mean, you can become an informed decision maker when it comes to your body. You don't have to give it all away to your doctor or your OBGYN.
Totally, 100%. So.
For sure.
Getting back into a specific question here about periods and women and all of this, what advice would you have for women who have lost their periods completely after extreme exercise or dieting or weight loss, and why it's important to get it back, and maybe some practical tips of how to get it to be back to normalized? And I think you've touched on that a little bit, but...
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's one of those things, especially for women who have been on the pill for a really long time, and then they've come off and not gotten their period back. That's really and truly the biggest cause behind not a missing period. But the other causes, are indeed the over exercising, and then under eating or not eating the right or not consuming the right nutrients. And so what I have found is that it's a process, and it takes quite a bit of dedication to get your period back. At least for a number of women I've worked with, and for women who have, most likely been on the pill for a long period of time, or just been on a really restricted diet, or exercising really hard for a long period of time. So the proper name for this is functional hypothalamic amenorrhea, or FHA. And so it's essentially what I was saying before, where it's the breakdown of communication between your hypothalamus and your pituitary gland that are in your brain and your ovaries. It's known as the hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis. So all of these things in your endocrine system, they all work together. That's why when we're really stressed, we can skip ovulation or lose our periods completely. There's such a correlation between stress and our reproductive function, and of course many other things. But your thyroid, adrenals, and your ovaries all function sort of on this same axis. So when one thing goes wrong, it's like a domino effect. So that's the first thing I think women should know, that it's all connected. So it's not one of these things where you're like the doctor says, oh, well, you have this and you need to take this for this. It's just not like that at all. I think that it's all very connected, and you can definitely address it. And in terms of, what you can start to do, I would say for women who have been on a very restricted diet, that's, the first thing to start to do is to really work on, and this is, if this is a situation where a woman has some sort of eating disorder, I highly recommend getting some kind of professional help to address that in itself, because that's obviously, that plays a big role in determining how much, what you're going to eat. So for women who have been on a restricted diet, or who are, lacking in nutrients, you really want to focus on getting in a good amount of protein into your diet. Hormones require protein for manufacture, so we just need to make sure we're getting a lot. And for my recommendations for clients, there is usually about close to 100 grams a day of protein. And that's, again, that's different for everybody, but that's what I recommend. And then you try it and see if you like it, and if it works for you. And if not, then you reduce. But again, that will help keep your sugar balanced, things like that. And then healthy fat. Hormones also need a lot of fat. They are synthesized from cholesterol. Pregnenolone, it's our mother hormone, and it's responsible for the production of progesterone and a number of other hormones as well. But it's synthesized from cholesterol. So again, getting healthy sources of fat and cholesterol in our diets, the wild-caught salmon, coconut oil or coconut butter, avocado, chia seeds, all these different kinds of good fat foods is really important. And then I would say, and that's across the board really, because with the pill, when we have hypothalamic amenorrhea due to the pill, like I said, there's that communication cutoff, but also the pill affects the way our gut functions. It actually changes the way food is broken down, and our gut metabolizes nutrients. We are very deficient in the B complex vitamins, and the B complex, I actually just wrote a blog post on this. So I'm kind of an expert now.
Below. Perfect.
Yes, absolutely. The B complex is so vitally important to women's reproductive and menstrual health. And when we're on the pill, many of us just do not get the right amount of them, because the pill changes that. In addition to that, the pill has a sort of antibiotic effect on our gut. So we end up with candida issues. At least many of us do. That's why I had chronic yeast infections when I was on the pill, and many women do. It's because of this sort of antibiotic effect that it has. And again, so that affects the kind of nutrients we have in our bodies, or that we're absorbing. And the problem with that is that over 10 years of being constantly or chronically malnourished because we've been on the pill, our body just can't make the hormones it needs to make. And then when we get off, we're completely depleted. So I'm a huge proponent of getting on a really good B complex vitamin once if you're on the pill, great. And once you get off the pill, for sure. And then it comes back to what we were talking about mending your gut, about healing your gut lining, because the pill and of course not eating well and all of those kinds of things can have such a tremendously bad impact on our guts. So of course that's a big part of it as well. And then over exercising, I mean, I think that we've been told for so long that over exercising is a good thing, and or exercising a lot is a good thing, and no pain, no gain, and all that other nonsense. But what I've found time and again with women is that when they start to slow down, their bodies are no longer in that fight or flight alarm stage, and they're able to really produce the right hormones. So the issue with over exercising is that our bodies produce cortisol in response to that because it's stressful and they think that we're running from something. They don't know any better. And so for our bodies, when we start to produce cortisol, our progesterone levels go down. And progesterone is needed for our periods, our proper functioning menstrual health. And the reason for that is because cortisol takes precedence over progesterone. And our stress response takes precedence. We're always going to try and meet our stress response demands before anything else. Everything else shuts down. When we're in that alarm stage, fight or flight, all of that kind of mode, our reproductive organs are the first to be shut down because nobody's trying to make a baby when they're running from a tiger, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that would be the big thing for me, for anyone who is exercises a lot. It would be to reduce that. Try meditation, yoga, tai chi, all of those different things to bring back that calm, make your parasympathetic nervous system kick back in.
That's amazing. You really gave so many different varied things there and really practical tips. Those were super helpful. Thank you.
Oh, good. Oh, you're welcome.
So talking again, and we've mentioned this a couple of times, but about conflicting views out there on the internet and just everywhere. It can really be tough for people, but I'm curious about this and want to throw this out there, but there's a lot of conflicting views in this like wellness world where people saying it's healthy not to have a period and it means women are in balance or when they're having this really clean diet and when they no longer have their cycle each month. But can you talk about that and your feelings on that world of thought?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness.
I think
yeah, I've got a very strong opinion about these things.
I was hoping so.
Yeah. Frankly, I mean, honestly, I think that's insane to think or to even purport this idea that, not having a period is healthy. It infuriates me, actually.
Well, I couldn't agree more, just for the record.
I'm sure. I figured you probably did. I have trained with some really incredible people. I mean, Dr. Sarah Gottfried, she's at the forefront of women's hormonal health. And, she just wrote a book. She's writing another book. And she's one of these doctors who has, she's worked in this field for 20 years. And she doesn't subscribe to any of this. Well, she loves the woo out there stuff, but she's also a huge proponent of having science to back this stuff up. And so I've learned from that way of thinking and from her. And I feel really strongly that there is so much evidence to show that we absolutely should have a period every month and why we should have it, that people saying that we shouldn't or that it's okay it's just so wrong. And I mean, it's like propaganda, literally. And most of it comes from I'm going to be like thrown in jail, but most of it comes from the pill companies, because really and truly nobody has money to do research on the pill other than the pill companies themselves. And so essentially they're going to just be biased. And so again, like Seasonal or one of those pills, they're going to say, yeah, it's totally fine to have a period 3 or 4 times a year. It's completely normal. But we were not made that way. So why in the last 20 years has it become completely normal? And we've got millions of years of evolution to back that up. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right. That's so true. And I couldn't agree more. And I'm really glad we went on the record talking about that, because it's something that so many people still don't know about. And I think it's really great to wake people up to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to add too that, again, this is a really interesting cycle that's happening right now. We have been effectively on the pill, and these girls are getting younger and younger. I mean, I know 13-year-old girls who are on the pill. which is insane because of, because of period problems. 25% of American women are on the pill for other problems aside from birth control. So they're on it for something completely different than birth control. And again, that in itself is a massive problem because we are addressing PMS, PMDD, depression with the birth control pill, and all it's doing is digging us into a deeper ditch every single month, just because we're operating at a hormone deficit. So many of us are when we're on the pill. We're not getting enough, and so we end up with not only a disappearing period, but we also end up with low sex drive. I mean, I have 18-year-olds who've written me who say they have no sex drive. And I mean, that's insane. And it's because I'm just being on the pill for like 3 months, literally. Right. And so there's no sex drive, there's no desire. Women can't lubricate anymore. All of these different things are happening. And then, of course, the ultimate is infertility. And women come off of the pill and they can't get pregnant. And within a month or two, their doctor's like, well, let's start you on hormones. And so who benefits? I mean, at the end of the day, it's completely economically driven. And that's a huge problem for me.
So much good stuff there. I
know.
I want to fist pump. There was just so much that is great that I agree with.
Totally.
So much good stuff there. Okay, now for the fun part of the interview. I want to get personal. Well, it's all been fun, but I want to get really personal with you specifically. So you ready for it?
I'm so ready.
Okay, cool. Well, can you walk us through your morning routines and just specific things you do to start your day kind of on a wellness foot and kind of get things going and why you do that and how it affects the rest of how your day goes?
Yeah, I mean, I will start by saying that if I don't do certain things in the morning, then I'm completely frazzled all day. So I've learned that lesson the hard way, I think from back in my production days. But I've also realized that for me, the morning has to start without an alarm. When an alarm goes off, it's very jarring. And so I start the day without an alarm. So I wake up when I think my body's ready for it. And that's a big thing for so many of us. Our internal clocks are so off now that we just, we're constantly in this place where we're dependent on something to get us out of bed or wake us up, all of these different things. So that's my first thing. I don't have an alarm. And then I usually when I wake up, I take my temperature because I practice fertility awareness. So that's another thing. I know a lot of people might not even be familiar with that, but I use the fertility awareness method. So I take my basal body temperature every morning. I'm such a dork. But that's my birth control. And so that's the second thing I do. And then usually I'll write in my journal. I find that when you can sort of empty your head of thoughts in the morning first thing, especially stuff that has been bothering you, things that have come up, maybe things you dreamt about. It helps to have somewhere to put all of that rather than you carrying it through the day and then causing even more kind of stress. So that's what I'll do right after that. And then, and then I wake up. There isn't really anything too exciting. I usually drink green juice because I really love starting my day that way. Or I'll have a warm glass of lemon water. Really like that too. And then of course have to say good morning to the boyfriend and the 4 kittens that we've got. Aww. And the 2 dogs. So it's like kind of crazy in the house in the morning.
It sounds so fun.
I know, it's kind of fun. Sorry, what was that?
Can I sleep over? Well,
you can totally, yeah, please do. Come hang out. And so that's really how it starts. And it's, I really like to sit outside for a while too. And just like 5 or 10 minutes, touch my feet on the grass. I find that, I don't really get to do that in New York. I split my time. So while I'm here where I am with my boyfriend, we have a backyard. It's kind of nice because New York, that obviously does not happen. Right. Backyards are few and far between. So I'll just sit and, just sort of do a little meditation and have, sit on the grass. I'm such a hippie. Oh my God, I'm listening to myself.
No, it's amazing. I mean, I'm somebody in that grounding is super important too. I learned recently, I had Latham Thomas on, and she was telling me that for Tauruses, it's really it's a grounding sign, and we really need that. And I was like, oh my gosh, that so makes sense. So I'm wondering, is that your sign?
No, I'm a Virgo,
Oh,
but I
okay.
feel
Well,
like there are a lot of similarities.
yeah, yeah, I'm sure.
Yes,
But anyways, I
definitely.
adore that question. Like I love asking people there. It's like the nosiest thing I can get and so personal and I love hearing people's answers and I know they're so inspiring to me personally and then to everybody who listens. So I love that.
Totally. I love
And
it.
now I want to turn it around to the evening. Could you give us some evening rituals and kind of what you do to wind down and relax and how you end your day on the right foot?
Oh, totally. I think that's one of the biggest things for women. I think we really, and we don't do this well. Like we need to learn to self-soothe, and especially when we have crazy jobs and crazy lives, because, I don't have kids, so I can't even imagine that realm of busy. I can't even fathom it. But I feel busy all the time. So I would say that that's one of the biggest things that we need to sort of take back or take control of, is this idea that we can take care of ourselves and calm ourselves down. And I've gotten some really good tips over the years, and I use a lot of different ones. So for me, evening routine, dinner, obviously, and then uh, I'm just laughing thinking about this because my boyfriend usually gives me a head start. He's already like passed out by the time I'm done with what I'm doing. So I would say, the whole bathroom situation, it's usually like taking off makeup and taking a shower. And, I'd love to do dry brushing. I think that that's really great. And for people who might not know what dry brushing is, it's really just using a brush and making, brushing your skin, literally. It
Yeah.
helps with circulation and
Yeah.
removal of toxins. I'm
I
sure
did a
you've
blog
probably talked
post
about
about
this.
it recently, so I'll post that
Ah,
link below too with my blog post on it.
you should. Awesome. Yeah, dry brushing is great.
Yeah.
Yes. And then I do, I don't really do any kind of, like, sometimes I'll do a little meditation at night. I'll write in my journal at night too, just about the day and if there was anything that was stressing me, again, because I think in the US we have the more sleep problems than any other country, and a lot of it just relates back to our daily habits and our stressful jobs and all these other things and what's happening for us. And when we can sort of unload that before we go to sleep, I think it's tremendously helpful. So I do that sometimes. And then, what else do I do? I'm trying to think now.
Take your
Think about my evening.
take your magnesium.
Oh yes, my magnesium. There you go. My magnesium and my probiotic. I take a probiotic before dinner too, before bed as well.
Nice,
That's
nice.
pretty much it. Yep.
Well, we've talked a little bit, or we've alluded to your relationship and just relationships in general, but going back to women's health a little bit, could you talk about why relationships are so important for women's health?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I would say, I mean, they can be good and not good. What I've found in my own experience and in experience from friends and clients is that when we have an unhappy home environment or an unhappy relationship or an unsatisfying relationship, what we end up with is a manifestation of menstrual and period problems. And so I find that when, there's a lot of emotional stress in our personal lives, it really shows up in that way. And, this is just sort of taking a page from Dr. Christiane Northrup and a number of other women's health practitioners in this idea that when there are issues, personal issues happening, they can show up as, irregular periods, infertility, cervical issues, all these different things. So it's really, really important to be in a relationship where you feel supported and you feel safe. And when you're with somebody, this, I think a lot of women can relate to this, but when you're not in a satisfied relationship, I find that, again, like I said, it manifests as some sort of physical issue, or at least it tends to. And there's a stress aspect as well. And the reason it tends to manifest is because, our bodies are just continually producing this cortisol, and we have up to 50 experiences a day where they're stressful experiences that we may not even be aware of, but our bodies are aware of it, and they're producing cortisol in response to it so that we can deal with them. And then, of course, our progesterone goes down, and then our estrogen rises, and then we end up with estrogen dominance. And and that just sort of manifests into all kinds of period and menstrual problems. So I think that it comes back to knowing yourself, and that's why I love journaling and things like that, just to
Yeah.
get your thoughts on paper. But knowing yourself and knowing what it is that really works for you and understanding what works for you. And if you don't, you're going to, end up in a relationship where you're not happy, you're not getting what you want, you don't feel like you can do what you want, all of these different things. I think a lot of women feel trapped in their relationships, and that all of these things, I think, just add up to having, and, ending up with this sort of underlying hormonal issue happening, and then, of course, a manifestation of symptoms.
Totally. And I think, and you just touched on this here, but this is something I learned from my mentor, Gabrielle Bernstein, but she always says that with relationships, it's when two complete people come together, not two half people coming together to make a whole. And
yeah, I love that line.
Yeah. And I think that that's really, really important in this and in its effect on women's health. And you touched on that here, but
for sure. I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's so key.
Yeah. And again, just journaling, like you've talked about it a million times, and I couldn't agree more. Like for me, meditation, yoga, like it's all well and good, but my journal, I literally was just talking about this with someone, saves my life. Like it
yes.
is the thing that, whether it's, like the Artist's Way morning pages, or, I have to carry one with me all the time. Sometimes it's the notes on my iPhone, but just getting those thoughts out of your mind so you can it clears space for creativity, for health, for wellness, for all these other things, and really kind of can help with the stress, at least for me. So that's definitely something I want to offer to people as a takeaway for dealing with their stress. I think it can be huge for that.
Oh my gosh, I just couldn't agree more. I feel like all of those things, it's just this mental clutter. And if it's ongoing, I mean, you can't really get anything done. You can't be focused on one thing fully if you're, constantly got this stuff buzzing around in your head.
Yes. Like you can't see me, but I'm nodding like crazy.
So am I. I've been as well.
We're so on the same page. Okay, so staying with the personal, let's talk food, which is such a personal topic. Mm-hmm. So for you personally, I'm going to give you a little food scenario. You ready for it?
I'm so ready.
Okay, so it's like 8 p.m. You've had a really long day. You're starving, but you're super tired. What do you do /eat/make? What is your go-to kind of meal?
I just love one pot meals. I think they're so, especially if I'm by myself and I'm cooking for myself or by myself or one person. I just think that, and even if I'm not, they're still my favorite. Just something along the lines of a bowl, like a rice bowl or a grain bowl with lots of veggies and maybe some kind of protein, maybe something like chicken or salmon. That's totally my favorite dish, and I feel like I could eat that stuff every day.
Totally.
So boring.
I love bowls too. It's so funny. I was at this restaurant last night, and I love their salad, but they usually put it on a plate, and I literally cannot eat a salad on a plate. I joke that I'm allergic to salads on plates, and I asked them if they could put it in a big bowl for me, because it's so nice and comforting, whatever's in your bowl, to just have this great bowl of nourishing things and kind of mix it around together. It's great.
Oh, it's so great.
Maybe add some dulse like we were talking about earlier.
Completely. Yeah, I throw all that in there too. I feel like I just sort of throw everything but the kitchen sink into these things. And those, and another combination is smoothies. I love smoothies, and I'm a big proponent of smoothies to get in all of those nutrients and minerals that you need to maintain your reproductive health. I think that those are a big one.
What are some go-to or definitely things people should try to include in their smoothies for reproductive health?
I would say, okay, so there are a couple of things. I mean, first of all, I want to say that smoothies can get very sweet. So again, if you feel like you have any kind of blood sugar instability issues, always make sure that you're including protein powder, a good protein powder with your smoothie, just because, again, or nut butter or almond butter, something along those lines, just to make sure that you're balancing the protein and the carbs, the sugar. But I love a basic smoothie. So it would usually have strawberries and blueberries in it. And then, I like kale, some kind of leafy green, a couple of cups of that. I think that everybody should have that have that in their smoothies. And then I do cacao powder. I do goji berries or goji berry powder. Those, again, cacao, as we talked about, has tons of magnesium in it. The goji berries are just really high in vitamin A and vitamin C.
And yummy.
Yes, and they're really good. Exactly. Vitamin A is really great. Actually, it helps with a number of things in our reproductive organs. So that's a good one. And then I really like camo berry powder. So it's super high in vitamin C. It's one of the highest. Vitamin C actually is the only vitamin that helps to boost progesterone levels. So it's been proven to boost progesterone levels. So I'm a big fan of vitamin C. And then something along the lines of like some sort of bee product. So bee pollen, lots of women for fertility reasons like bee propolis or bee pollen, something, or honey, even just a little bit of honey. It's too sweet. Things like that, again, full of B vitamins, big time B vitamins. And so I think that those are really like the main ones that I throw in there.
Nice. Well, that sounds delicious. It's making me hungry.
I don't want one now. I know.
I know. Okay, cool. Well, I guess I have one final question for you before I do some quick fire questions to wrap. But okay. I want to ask you what you are doing in your life that you're afraid of or excited about that you're pushing yourself and doing anyways.
That's such a good question. Oh, I was just thinking about that today. I am about to launch an 8-week program, and I was literally just saying yesterday how stressed I am about it. It's one of those things that I know I need to do, and I am very excited about it. It's one of my most comprehensive programs, and so for me, that's my big thing right now. That's sort of got me on both ends of the spectrum. I'm very excited, but somewhat scared.
Amazing. Well, we will post all the links for that and everything, all of the cool things you're doing so people can stay in touch with you and follow your amazing work. I'm just so excited about this conversation. This has been amazing.
Thank you, Katie. I really appreciate it. I've loved talking to you. It's been so much fun.
Yay. Okay, well, we're not quite done yet. Can you stick around for some quick fire questions?
I sure can.
Okay, cool. So we'll just this is really fun. We'll do the first thing that comes to your mind. So, okay. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Favorite color?
Pink.
Favorite yoga pose?
Oh boy, what is it? What's my favorite? I would say crow. I just love to do it.
Nice. Favorite day of the week?
Saturday.
Favorite hour of the day?
Morning time, like 9 a.m.
Favorite veggie?
I love kale. What can I say?
Favorite fruit?
Mangoes.
Favorite way to relax?
Laying on the beach.
That sounds good.
I know, right?
Favorite New York City meal?
Oh my goodness, are you kidding me? There's too many. Anything that's from an organic kind of vegetarian restaurant, usually.
So good. There's so many great options.
Too many, I know.
Oh my gosh. What does your ideal day look like?
I would say, doing that same morning routine that I was talking about and not doing too much work and just spending it with, the people that I really care about.
Nice. What does, if you had a superhero power for a day, which one would it be?
Oh, man. I was just writing about this the other day on my Facebook page. I'd love to fly.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah, I think so too.
What's your favorite go-to snack for on the go?
That's a good question. I don't know. There's so many. Usually it's like either a piece of fruit and some kind of nuts, something like almonds or something like that. It's pretty basic. Nice.
What's your favorite beauty ritual?
I love facial masks.
Nice. Favorite movie?
Oh, girl. There's so many.
I know,
my gosh.
It's tough.
I know. You're killing me here. I'm so terrible with these things. I have so many favorite movies. There isn't really one in particular, to be completely honest.
That's okay. There's so many good ones. Okay, here's some questions. So, almond milk or coconut milk?
I like homemade almond milk.
Me too. So good. Smoothie or juice if you had to choose?
Oh, man. I would take the smoothies. I really do love them.
So good, yeah. They're both so good.
They are. It's hard to choose.
Avocado or tahini?
Oh, avocados.
Yeah, hands down. That's an easy one. Lemon or lime?
Lemon.
Hemp seeds or chia seeds?
Chia seeds.
Okay, well, these were so much fun. You were such a good sport. Had so many great takeaways for everybody, and I really think we kind of opened the door to a really great discussion, and I hope the discussion can continue below in the comments, and we'll both be around to answer any of your comments and questions, so let us know what you think, if any of this resonated with you, and we will be back next week. Thank you so much, Nicole, for all of your great insights.
Thank you. I'm so grateful that you contacted me. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yay. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. You made it all the way to the end. I'll be back next week, but until then, let's stay inspired and keep this conversation going. So tweet at me at Katie Dalebout and our guest with your aha moments from this conversation. And like the Wellness Wonderland on Facebook, so we can all hang out there and discuss how inspired we are and how we'll apply it in our daily lives. And never miss another episode or post from me by signing up for email updates on thewellnesswonderland.com. See you back in Wonderland.